Hi, this is Brenda Trott, Make Money in Your Sleep Girl, and this is episode 3 of the Pajama Party Profit Show. And today we have got, well, we'll just try to start the show first. See if it works this time. Today, we've got Dr. Marilyn with us, and she is going to show us a sneaky way that she was able to get some marketing done so that she could make some more passive income. But that's not all she's got to share. If you don't feel the way you should, she's the one to talk to. Stay tuned. Okay, you know I'm human. You know that I am working so hard to get that introduction correct and right, and I think I'm on the right track, but I know I have a long way to go, so thank you for sticking in there with me on getting the intro done. Again, I'm Brenda Trott, and I'm so excited to bring you this guest today, but before I bring her on, I want to talk to you just a little bit about some woo-woo stuff, and it's important, and some woo-woo stuff that I might consider, you may have heard it before, following your gut. And I had to do this just recently. You know, you guys know that I'm married and now I'm having a wedding, and that's all fun stuff. But my gut told me that this was the time to do it, and that this was the person to do it with. And I'd never had that gut feeling before, and this is my 3rd marriage, so I hope that the gut is right this time. But I can tell you that my gut does tell me where to go and when to go, and when I listen to it, it tells me the right things. And that is how I met Dr. Marilyn Joyce. I just had things fall in line the way they were supposed to fall in line, and I was able to get myself up to Georgia, which was another feat in itself. That was outside the box for me, and I'll explain that to you maybe another time. But what I'm saying is that when you get that gut feeling, try doing the opposite. Try not listening to your head for a second and listen to that gut, because you might be surprised about what follows. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to someone very special to me. Her name is Dr. Marilyn Joyce, and she was my roommate for an entire weekend when we went up to Atlanta, Georgia, and went to the NAMS event. And I can leave you information about the NAMS event in the show notes. But basically, it was a whole bunch of crazy, wonderful people like Dr. Joyce and I, and we went to different things where people taught us their skills, and more importantly, we got to meet other people who are doing some really cool and wonderful things, and they got to meet us. And then it became this win-win situation, and we made some bonding that you just sometimes can't do when you're online. So these were things that you could do in person, and they're only a couple times a year, the ones that you pick and choose, and this was a really special one that I went to, and it's really cool that when she told me one night, I think at 3 o'clock in the morning, because we were so excited doing a whole bunch of other stuff, and just, you know, those times where your creativity just explodes, and she told me about this one method, and I said, whoa, 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 right there, you got to come on my show. And I tried to get her to do it that weekend, but it was not going to happen. So I'm very, very excited. We've only been back. This is still the same week that we've come back. So I just want to introduce Dr. Marilyn. Hi, and thank you so much for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
You are you are one thing that I did not mention is that you are pretty difficult to keep up with. You are doing walks every day. You are in the health and nutrition niche. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Do I have to hit the picture to come on, or or am I showing up?
You should be showing up. I see you.
Oh, all right. Cool. I do walk every day, and pretty much every day, and you know, just really like to be very active and that's the way to stay healthy and vibrant and alive. And especially as we get older, you know, it becomes even more critical to take the steps that are necessary in order to be vibrantly alive. And that means, you know, exercise is one of those things, but, you know, you've got to have the nutrition as well, and it's a whole process. You know, it's like I have my 5-key system that I teach, but it's also something that I practice. And so that's basically what I incorporate whether I'm at home or on the road. It's just amazing how we were able to stay up so late and still get through all those days. Woo! Talk about it.
We really did.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I cheated, and I skipped some sessions and went and slept so that I could be up and socialize the rest of the evening. I cheated a little bit, but they gave us videos, or audios at least, so that we could watch and listen in on the sessions that we did miss. And we couldn't be at everything at every time at one time anyway, so it was really great that we could select something to meet with someone that we really wanted to meet with, and then still get the information from the others. So that was the NAMS event, NAMS 13, and NAMS 14 is coming up, so I'll be leaving information about that in the show notes. Have you always, we didn't talk about this, but have you always been in the nutrition area? Have you always been this healthy?
No. I have been in the nutrition world for a long time. I mean, I traveled around the world when I was younger, and kind of, you know, I was the hippie days, I hitchhiked around the world, and I ended up studying yoga in India, and that, I had done a bit of yoga in Canada, where I lived at the time before that, and so I had an introduction to it, but in India it was full on for a year and a half. I was in an ashram. So, you know, that was where I was really introduced to the 5 keys that form the program, or my signature program that I introduce people to now. The difference is that we spent all day doing all those different activities, and I have honed it down into 5-minute strategies that anyone can do anywhere, anytime. Because in our culture, people aren't going to spend 3 hours meditating, or 2 hours doing pranayama, which is the deep breathing practices, or karma yoga, which most of us might call our day job, but unless you're doing what you love. And so then it's a different story. But, you know, that was my first introduction. But then it was a few years later, actually after I was a mother and had a lot of other responsibilities, that I ended up going back to university and getting my degrees in biochemistry and human nutrition, and then psychology, and then my PhD in psychology and nutrition. But it was a few years later. And I would say that from that point forward, I've been involved in some way or another with nutrition and lifestyle strategies, because it's, you know, nutrition is only one aspect of it. But it was, but I still became very ill in my 30s, during the 80s, when I was diagnosed with not one form of cancer, but actually 2. First of all, melanoma, and then uterine cancer, stage 4. And so, even though I was in the field, there were a lot of things I was doing wrong, and that's where I learned that there's a lot more than just nutrition involved in wellness and in the perpetuation of illness. You know, it really boils down to your attitude and what's going on inside of you, and then that will determine how well you absorb, for example, the nutrients you take in, or how effective your body works in general when you're breathing. I mean, many people don't deep breathe, for example, in our culture. They breathe into their, you know, just into their chest. So if you don't breathe deeply, you're not going to get the oxygen required to assimilate all those nutrients anyway that you get in healthy food. It's a whole, I don't want to get too complicated here, but it's a whole complex of things that are going on, and it requires us to have a whole program in place that addresses each of those areas. And you know, it has to be physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And the biggest challenge in our culture is that we have, over the last, say, 200 years or more, we've actually taken the human being and divided them into all these parts. So we don't treat the person as a whole person. We treat the physical part, and then we treat the mental part, and then we treat the psychological part, and then we treat the spiritual part.
Wow. I didn't realize one question was going to, you know, have such a prolific and profound answer, and I just want to stop you for a second, because everything that you say is just, first of all, let me just back all the way up, because even though you shared a lot with me on that weekend, I had no idea you'd been to India to study, so that's new information for me as well. which is just another thing. If you have the opportunity to actually meet, I'm so glad to be able to introduce you guys to Dr. Joyce, because she's, aside from being just a really cool person, she really has lived this just wondrous life. And I was talking to her about, you should write a book, and she's already written several, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But excuse me while I just there you are. Okay. So what I was getting at though before with everything else that you said, I absolutely agree with they're treating us in the parts, but not just that. Every doctor is still kind of treating, I've been dealing with something myself, which is one of the reasons why I do Pajama Party Profits, because I couldn't hold a regular job right now. I'm going to a doctor 5 times a month, 5 different appointments, and they're not just little appointments. I mean, you have to drive to wherever these doctors are, and you have to take their tests, and so literally 5 days out of a month for the last, let's see, this has been going on for over 2 years now. So for me to hold a job is almost impossible, because what job is going to let you take that much time off of work? And if it's your day off, then it would be another issue, medical issue, I think, because I wouldn't have any kind of downtime at all. So everything that you said was just so resonating with me, because the doctors don't even talk to each other about their part of your physical part of your body. So I completely understand. But what I want to break it down to, and what I was hoping to ask you about, which I have not asked you before, so I could be going the wrong direction, but my gut's telling me you've got a really good answer for this. What does health and being healthy in all of those areas, how does that correlate to our pocketbook? How does that correlate to the money in our life? Is that an okay question?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you really can't be wealthy in, with money and finances and material things if you're not healthy to begin with. And I can tell you this from the personal experience I had, because I was at the top of my game in 1985. I mean, I had reached the pinnacle, you might say, of my career, and I wasn't happy. It wasn't work I loved doing. I was doing more administrative dietetics than actually working with people hand in hand. And so basically what happened was that my body was getting broken down throughout that entire time. So I'd gotten to the point where I made a lot of money, and I had the car of my dreams, I had the house of my dreams, I had all those things, and money's in the bank for my kids' university if they chose to go. But then I was sick. I got sick, and over the course of 5 years, I lost everything, literally. I mean, I spent it on treatments all over the world, looking for the magic bullet, and found nothing really that was a magic bullet. There are no magic bullets. There are systems that work and systems that don't work so well, and everybody's a little different. So for example, when I work with clients or patients, their program is going to be different from another person's program. That's why I've created hundreds of strategies, 5-minute strategies, because what works for one person may not work for another, or they may not be as receptive to it, let's say. But the key here is to answer your question. If you don't, you can make it to the top, but you won't stay there or be alive to enjoy the fruits of your labor if you're not healthy. And I mean, I've seen it time and time again where people have supposedly reached the top in their career. They've got all they ever dreamed of materially and monetarily, and then all of a sudden they're diagnosed with an illness such as cancer, or it might be something else, but they're diagnosed with some major illness. And there's a cliche statement that you spend the first half of your life building up your nest egg and creating success and monetary gain, only to spend it in the second half of your life trying to overcome the illness you created as a result of the hard work and oftentimes doing work you don't like. And I mean, that's a key element too. It's not just about it's not just about being healthy. It's about being healthy mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, as well as physically. And you can't be healthy emotionally and spiritually and mentally if you're not doing things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, that's where I'd really like you to hone in on for a little bit, because I think it's almost cliche to hear, I mean, not that it's not true, but it's almost cliche to hear, we ruin our lives trying to get to the top because we're working too many hours and we're doing things that we don't like, and we're doing it because we're going to do it so that we can enjoy things later, but by the time later happens, we've made ourselves ill. And I think that's something that